And Mick Riva, listen, I don't want to read another story about Mick Riva. Please, Taylor Jenkins Reid. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayomi JM and I will be doing my February wrap-up today. So I read 6 books in February, 3 physical books, 1 Kindle book, and 2 audiobooks. So I'm gonna just jump right in, starting with the physical books that I read and then moving on to the digital books I read. In February, I had an idea that I was gonna read lots of romance and lots, especially by Black authors. Instead, I read more thrillers, mysteries, and some non-fiction. So I feel like I'm not really someone who can plan a proper to be read. I'm always reading based on my mood. I started off the month by finishing Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. It was a really interesting ride. It's actually one of the most famous books and she's one of the best-selling authors. So it followed these 10 people who were sent to an island or invited to an island for a getaway, and they all had different reasons of being there, and one by one they start to die and they're all trying to find out who the killer is. We are also trying to find out as the reader who the killer is, and we do at the end, and it's a big twist and I didn't see it coming, and it's a really quick read. And as I do after every book was I wanted to research this, and I found out that she was actually quite racist, and I found out the original name of this book, which I won't repeat, was actually very, very racist. The second name was also quite racist, and then There Were None is the new modern name. So I don't know how I feel about that, and I got into all these discussions about authors of the past, and I don't really love the argument it was of its time, because my grandparents were alive at this time. For me, reading this book and then researching the title of the book and the author's anti-Semitism and racism and anti-blackness, I feel like it gave me a lot of insight, and it was a reminder of how deeply embedded these systems of oppression are, that a book could be marketed with that name. I had given this 4 stars. Next book that I read was Cultish by Amanda Montell. This was a gift I was given by a friend, and it is a non-fiction book all about the language of cults. I originally thought it was going to be all about cults, but it was kind of dissecting cultish language and cultish things and phenomena in our current day. So it did outline famous cults like Jim Jones and other cults like that, but then it spoke about Soul Cycle and different types of fitness like CrossFit that utilize these languages to draw people in, and I felt that was a really interesting concept of comparing the language that cults use and how it's weaponized, and the language that businesses and corporate language and people who are affected by this cultish language. And I thought it was really interesting. I gave it 3 stars because I felt it was really good material. I learned a lot, but I felt the connections that were being made could have been a little stronger, and it felt a little repetitive at times. So I gave this one 3 stars, but definitely learned quite a lot. So I also read Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So Malibu Rising follows 4 siblings in Malibu, of course, who are all surfers, and their famous dad is not in their lives, and it kind of flips back between the current, so well, not the current, but it's a historical fiction, but it flips back between their lives in the 70s, I believe, where they're famous and wealthy, and then their parents' lives in the 50s, seeing their journey of becoming rich and famous. And it really unpacks a lot of sibling issues, older sibling issues, younger sibling issues, brotherhood. So that was interesting. Overall, I thought the book was interesting but fell flat for me. I was really excited to read this book because I was enamored by 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is the author's previous book, and I wasn't enamored by this. I thought the writing was not good. I thought the writing was actually quite cringe and cliched. It wasn't good to me. The story, however, could have been a little better if I felt more connected to the other characters, but they did feel distant, and the only character I really felt connected to was Nina. and so that's why it really fell flat beyond the writing for me. Other than that, other thoughts about this book is that it would probably make a really good movie. Like, I could really envision this being a movie because it's very dramatic. The other thing is the men in this book are all trash. I was getting so angry. I was like, as if it was my life. Like, I was getting so mad at every single man in this book. And Mick Riva? Listen, I don't want to read another story about Mick Riva. Please, Taylor Jenkins Reid. Not another one, because this man has me offset. Like, offset bad. 2.5 stars, rounded up to 3. It was for me. The Kindle book that I read was Arsenic and Adobo by Mia Mananzala, and I actually really loved it. It was my first time reading like a cozy mystery. This book was set in a Filipino restaurant. That's a family-owned restaurant, and someone dies there. And they don't know who did it, but the police believe that someone in that family restaurant poisoned the person that died. And the whole book is the main character, the protagonist, whose family owns the restaurant, trying to find out who did it to get her family off the hook, and uncovering all of these different things as she goes along. I won't say more without, because I'll ruin the book, but like the food was so like I could taste the food by the author's writing. Like, food was peppered through the scenes of that book. I actually read it when I was getting my hair done, and I read it in one sitting because it was just so good and so inviting and so encapsulating of Filipino food and culture, but also had that really interesting, like, airy, cozy mystery vibe to it. So I really loved that. So I gave that one 4 stars. I listened to People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry on audiobook. I didn't rate it because I really felt like I need to read it. People We Meet on Vacation follows these 2 characters who are friends, and every summer they have gone on a trip together because one of the main characters is a writer, and they stopped going on trips, and we don't know why yet. And obviously these 2 people have a thing for each other, and everyone knows it but them. Typical friends to lovers story. It fell flat for me. I didn't rate it because I felt like I wasn't paying attention well enough to the audiobook. And by the end, when I found out what the reason they had stopped going on the trip was, I was like, wait, what? It didn't pack a punch for me. I like the vacation descriptions. I love a holiday romance. Like, the settings were amazing, but I couldn't really buy the romance well. And yeah, it's just like, I maybe need to reread it because a lot of people said they really love that book. So I want to be in on it too. So I'm going to reread it because I just don't really feel like I know what really happened. Yikes. And the last book that I listened to was When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. This was a thriller set in Brooklyn. So, you know, I was like, I'm ready to read this. And it follows these 2 characters, and it switches point of view between them. And one of them is a long-term Brooklyn resident, and the other one is a newcomer resident. And there's something really weird happening in their neighborhood where people are giving up, black people and people of color are giving up their homes and basically disappearing without saying to their neighbors that they're leaving. So it really takes the idea of gentrification, the housing crisis, and like kind of adds a thriller element, like something more sinister is going on. Like, where are these people going? Why are they disappearing? So it really blows that up a little bit more, and it becomes something a little bit more out of this world. And that was so well done to me. I gave that book 4 stars because I've never read anything quite like it. And people could like say it's kind of Get Out-esque, but yeah, I just found it to be so good, and I really want to read more books like that. So if anybody has any recommendations, please let me know. Those were all the books that I read in February. Only 6 books, which actually is like not, I shouldn't say only 6 books because actually that's quite a lot. And I'm excited for what March will hold. As usual, thank you for watching my video. I hope you stay. I hope you like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you again. Bye!